want to know information about your parents, where you've lived, your work history, your children. There's a lot of information, and for you to sit down at one sitting to do that, that's a lot of work. So that's why they've allowed you to go back into this. Once you get done filing it, you can pay for it online. It'll give you an automatic receipt right then and there. Typically, these cases that are filed electronically get to be seen at least 4 weeks quicker, sometimes 6 weeks quicker than it does to file by paper. The personal interview, very important. Yes, sir.
When you file electronically,
Mhm.
are there not some documents you need to include?
You can upload them.
Oh, okay.
You can upload documents. Yes, sir. Good question. Good question.
Format? What format? Upload?
I'm not sure what it is. It could be a JPEG, it could be the
PDF, whatever.
PDF, yeah.
Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah. And if you can upload it, just bring it to the interview. That's all I tell you. If you've gotten married, divorced, widowed, since you got your green card, bring those documents in with you. Okay? If you've had a formal name change with the court through a divorce or something, bring that in with you to the interview.
You have like a marriage certificate or license, you got married in some other country that it's all written in a different language.
You need to bring an English translation.
You do?
Yes, ma'am.
Does it have to be certified? Does it have to be,
Doesn't have to be certified.
like, what kind of, do you have to go through a specific service to get it translated, or?
You can, or you can have somebody that is fluent in that language. They can just write a statement, I am fluent in, Chinese. I can read and write and this is an exact translation of the original, and just include that with it.
You want the original, a copy of the original as well?
Yes, yes. If you have the original.
Was it translated?
Yes, yes, sir.
This was a little unusual, but we were making a credit card application, and they asked for some documents. Okay, we scanned everything, and for instance, we scanned her North Carolina ID card.
Mhm.
And we got a call back, and they said, we won't accept a scan, you have to send us a photograph.
That's interesting.
Is this something that the USCIS talks about?
Not heard about that with USCIS. USCIS just wants copies.
Yeah, okay.
And the nice thing is just bring all your documents with you at the interview. That
But
saves a lot of
It
trouble.
could be copies, doesn't have to be like notarized copies?
Does not have to be notarized.
No.
All a notary is saying that your signature is valid. That's all a notary is. It's just notarizing your signature on that document. Remember I told you that we come out and meet you in the waiting room and say hello, how are you doing? That's where the interview starts. Okay? That's where we're going to start assessing your English, as I mentioned. When we get you to the office, the officer is going to ask you to place your items on a chair or on a desk and explain to you, all right, before we begin, I need to place you under oath. Will you please raise your right hand? Now, the officer is not going to initiate it because they want you to understand what they're saying. Okay? So if the officer asks you, will you please raise your right hand, and you just look at the officer and say, yes. And you stand there. And I've had people do that. They stand there, look at me and say, yes. I say, do you have a right hand? Yes. Can you show me your right hand? Yes. And their hands are still down at their side. At that point, the officer would say, please have a seat. We're going to go through your reading, your writing, and your civics. Okay? Because I anticipated that when I was trying to place somebody under oath and I could not do it, they were probably very nervous. So, in doing the reading, the writing, the civics, these are things that they've studied. And we know that they've studied. Once they get through that hurdle, they're just, oh, yeah, I passed the civics. Now they're relaxed. Now we can ask them, okay, now that we're done with this, let's try and place you under oath again. Would you please stand and raise your right hand? And if they do that, we can proceed. Because we have to place you under oath to talk about your N400 with you. That is so much a key in all this, because we have to be able to verify that the information on your N400 is correct. And without placing you under oath, we can't do that. Okay. I talked about the reading, the writing, English, and civics. If we need additional documentation, okay, we mentioned about documents, driver's license, if you can bring it. Most officers will just require, the passport, the lawful permanent resident card, and if you have a state ID, please bring that. If you don't bring it, It's no big deal, but the officer, it depends on the officer again. If they wanna see that, they may ask you to just make a copy and send it in. And they will give you a form, it's called an RFE, request for evidence. Okay, they'll ask you to submit that. Typically, it's only a 30-day window. If you don't provide it within 30 days, guess what? They're gonna deny your case. Okay? And let me share with you, when you go through the interview, if you fail any section, let's just say you're not able to do the writing, okay, but you do everything else. The officer will tell you at the end of the interview, all right, you did well and everything, however, we need to work on your writing. So we're gonna send you a notice to return within 60 to 90 days to take another writing test. You'll go to a different officer and you'll take a different writing test. Once they place you under oath, they'll give you that other writing test. Once that's done, the interview is done. They're not gonna go back and retest you on civics. They're not gonna go back and retest you on your reading. Okay? It's just that one area or two areas that you did not pass the first time is all they're gonna talk to you about.
What if you determined in the chit chat, the small talk, that they didn't understand any English, can they get retested on that?
Yeah.
So they would call them back just to do chit chat?
No.
No.
They will call them back to try and place them under oath. Because that's typically what happens. It's called UUE, unable to understand English,
Mhm.
okay?
That's what happened to one of my ladies, when they asked her in the chit chat, she didn't understand any of what they were asking, but she knew all the answers on everything else.
Yeah, they'll call her back in. If she couldn't get placed under oath, they call that UUE, unable to understand English. Then they'll invite them to come back and test again, interview one more time. You get 2 interviews with each application that you file, okay? And there's rumors going out that if you don't pass, you're gonna get deported. That's not the case. We don't do that. You can reapply as many times as you need to pass. I interviewed a guy who was on his 5th application. That's a lot.
But they have
of
to
money.
pay every time.
You've gotta pay every time. Yes, ma'am. You've gotta pay. What you're paying for is the decision on the application and the time involved in making that decision. And if you've gotta come back twice, you're paying for 2 officers to make that decision for you.
I was thinking is that, so can you repeat that? So if you don't pass a portion of it,
Mhm.
you can come back?
Yep, you'll come back.
Without paying?
Yeah, for the second time. Yeah, you get 2 opportunities to pass.
2.
2,
The first one and then one more?
yes.
Okay. So if you still don't pass,
If you still don't pass the second time, they'll deny the case. And as soon as you get the denial notice, then you can reapply.
then you pay
Pay
again?
You have to repay again.
Are you
Yes.
gonna cover the fee, the amount, or?
Yeah, the fee is $725 right now. And that includes an $85 biometric fee and $640 for the application itself.
So what is biometric, what is that?
The biometric is your fingerprint and your photograph.
Okay, that is 85.
That's 85.
Okay.
Yeah, from there you go to the application support center in town. They'll send you the address and where to go. What that does, what the biometrics do, folks, is it sends your information to the FBI. They then input into their system and they look nationwide at all the law enforcement databases to see if you've ever gotten a citation, you've ever been arrested, ever been to court. Gentlemen, if you're not paying child support, guess what? That'll probably show up on there. Okay? I had a gentleman who was in arrears $80,000 for 2 children. It showed up. Yes, ma'am.
This is a question not related to any of this group, but some people, like in Sanford, have been detained at their business, but they later were found to have their documentation on them and were released. Does that detainment show up in
It will not.
fingerprinting?
Not unless they've been fingerprinted.
So if they've been fingerprinted in the detainment,
Mhm.
it shows up.
All they gotta do is put down, because remember the question was, have you been arrested, cited, or detained by law enforcement officers or the U.S. military or immigration for any reason? If they've been detained, all they gotta do is put down, yeah, I was detained on this date in Sanford. What happened? I was released, you know?
So that won't be held against them.
Nope, not at all. The only time it's gonna hurt somebody is if they've had multiple misdemeanors, or if they have been placed in proceedings to be removed from the United States by an immigration judge. and it hadn't been cleared up when they got their green card, then that's gonna cause a delay in the process, in the decision on this, because they're gonna have to do a little bit more research. They can find out. A lot of the fraud that we have found in our naturalization cases actually stem back to when the person got their green card. So, I gotta caution you though that make sure your answers are the same on your naturalization as they were when you got your green card. Because the officers will go back and look at the original application for your 45 that you got your residency from, just to make sure that they match up. So if you say on your N400 that you've never been arrested or cited, but on your 45 it says something, they're gonna have to question you on that. Okay, we're good. This side of the room is quiet. That's okay, that's okay. All right, and the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna have an oath ceremony for you. This is the celebration. This was the best part of my week when I lived in Tampa. This was taken at St. Petersburg's Tropicana Field before a Tampa Bay Rays baseball game. Both the Tampa Bay Rays and the Boston Red Sox came out on the field to watch the ceremony. It was just amazing. We had like almost 300 people there at that event. So we have some self-help tools available online. Once you set up your account, go to myuscis.gov. Even if you don't set up an account, okay? When you get your receipt, once you file your paper copy, you can go on that website to check your case status, check processing times. If you move, folks, this is so important. If you move, please, you've got to change your address with USCIS. If you don't change it with USCIS, your mail will not get forwarded by the Post Service. They're going to send it back to USCIS. So please, even if it's, to an apartment in the same building, or down the street, please submit a new change of address.
What if the move is temporary? I had someone last year from Peru, and he was living in Florida, but he was hired by a company here, and so he came here for 3 months. And during that 3 months, he got the letter in Florida at his residence, and he didn't know. So what if it's a temporary move?
He needs to let USCIS
At
know.
all times.
At all times.
Okay.
Yep. Again, downloading forms, find an office, doctor, or class, ask questions about your case. And if you go on this website and it's not fulfilling your needs, call the 1-800 number. You will speak with a live individual there to ask them what you need to find out.
The live individual, do they speak any other languages or just English?
I think it's just English.
Okay.
I've only called them and talked to them. I don't know any other languages, but good question. I haven't done it. If you have other questions, and you go online to our website, uscis.gov, go to Emma. She's this nice little lady up there. Just ask a question. Dropbox will come down. Type in your question there, and she'll send you to that place on our website. Okay? It's available in English and Spanish right now. And it'll ask you, once you get through with this, did this meet your needs? If not, it'll refer you to another screen to ask another question. That was one of the improvements they made last year. All right, then we talk a little bit about rights and responsibilities. When you become a U.S. citizen, it is so important that you take and vote, okay? A lot of folks come from countries where they can't vote. They're told who to vote for, and they realize that it doesn't matter who I vote for. Because I grew up in North Korea, and it doesn't matter if I voted for the other guy, Kim Jong-un's gonna get 100% of the vote, okay? We have 4 amendments in our Constitution about voting. That's how important it is. You can run for elected office. Recognize that guy? Yeah, he became a governor of the state of California, elected twice. Now, I would have never thought that watching this film, that he'd ever aspired to anything beyond that. But he had a vision. He had something he wanted to help his fellow Californians. He became a governor on it. You can apply to work for the federal government, and you can do anything from truck driving to working in our office. We have a young lady who was a refugee from Bosnia in a refugee camp for 2 years as a young child. Her father was interned in a a work camp during the war back in the 90s. And when the United Nations freed their family and freed the camp, they put them in a refugee camp, and 2 years later they came to the United States. She
That
fin-
makes me ask a question.
Yep.
Do refugees who are identified as refugees through the UN have a shorter route to citizenship?
Still gotta wait 5 years.
Okay. But they don't have a special, like, they're a refugee, therefore they can,
What happens with refugees? Okay, they come to the United States, they have to file for their residency after being here 1 year. Okay? Now, what happens with a lot of them is they don't do that right at that 1 year point, they will wait. And if they wait 5 years to file for their residency, as soon as they get their residency, they can turn around and file for citizenship because it reverts back to the day they arrived in the United States. So, their lawful permanent residency does. So we kind of try to encourage folks to get their residency at that 1 year point, to go ahead and file.
or does the UN High Commission on Refugees help them file? No?
Typically, what you've got is a host organization in the United States. A lot of charities, churches
Uh-huh.
in their communities. I know down in Charlotte, they've got, refugee support services. Carolina Refugee Services are down there. They take and they help these folks. They have ESL classes for them.
Okay.
They help them find jobs. That's their mission. But as a U.S. citizen, you can file to sponsor more family members to come here. As a lawful permanent resident, you can only sponsor your spouse and your children. And they are derivatives, which means it's going to take a little while to get their visas here. But once they become a United States citizen, that visa is immediately available because they are called immediate family members, immediate relatives. Not only is it going to be a spouse and the children, but their parents as well. So we've seen this with a lot of folks, is they will bring their parents over as soon as they get their citizenship. All they gotta do is file the I-130 and the I-45.
So, a question here, so
Sure.
if you're a US citizen, right?
Yes,
You can bring, your spouse and your children,
yes.
but not your sister, brother?
Brothers and sisters are called derivatives. There's a separate wait list for them. They're in a preference category. You can bring your parents, your spouse, and your children are considered immediate relatives. Brothers and sisters are preference category. Their wait time for visas can be anywhere from 15 to 22 years, depending upon the country that you're from. I think the Philippines right now is 22 years, Mexico is around 20 years, but everybody else is around 15 years. So if you think that in the future, one of your brothers or sisters may want to come to the United States, please file immediately when you get your citizenship. I talked to a lady down in Charleston 2 weeks ago who's been a citizen for 6 years, and she's just now filing for her brother. I told her, I said, if you'd have done that 6 years ago, you'd be halfway there to getting there. I mentioned dual citizenship. The reason we want you to show your loyalty to the United States is to travel with your U.S. passport. You have a question?
Yeah, she's asking a question
Sure.
about, so once you're a, United States citizen, if you wanna bring your husband, right? Your husband, so how long does it take?
Usually about 6 to 9 months.
6 to 9 months?
What she's got, you gotta file the I-130 and the I-45. What'll probably happen if he's in his own country,
Yeah.
he's gotta go to the American consulate there for his interview. They will send him an appointment notice to go see the American consulate to get an interview there to get his visa to come to the United States. And then once he arrives in the United States, he'll be given a packet. So when he arrives at the border, he'll hand that packet to our border agents. They will process it, and then he'll get his green card in the mail. Typically within 30 days. It's usually pretty quick.
So you said how much, 6 months to?
Probably 6 months, 6 to 9 months
6 to 9 months
Yep.
for your husband?
for your husband,
Okay,
right?
and your children, same thing?
Mhm.
Does that cost money per person?
Yes, it does.
How much is that?
I don't have the fees with me. We'll have to go to our website and find out the fees. The thing to do is, we have a fee calculator on our website. If you go to uscis.gov and type in fee calculator, type in I-130, I-45, and it'll ask if you want any other associated forms, such as a work authorization form, which is really a good thing to do. It's called an EAD, an employment authorization. If you file the I-130 and the 45 together, the work authorization card is free. Okay, there's no additional fee for that, unless you file for it separately. If you file separately, it's gonna be like $345. So we wanna make sure you file everything at one time. And if you want a list of the documents that you need to file, just send me an email. I can send you a list. I've got 2 pages that identify all the documents. Okay. I mentioned traveling with a U.S. passport. Anybody from Venezuela here? What do you think happened to those Americans that were Venezuelan citizens that went back to Venezuela last year?
They're stuck there.
They're stuck there, because if they didn't bring their U.S. passport, the United States vacated all Americans out of Venezuela. If you went there on your Venezuelan passport, not your U.S. passport, you're stuck, because you have no way of proving to the American consulate that you're a United States citizen. So we want you to be ready to travel if you need to and get that protection from the U.S. government.
I had a Venezuelan student this last fall, and she will be applying this spring. Is that gonna be halted because she's from Venezuela?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
All right.
As long as she meets all the other requirements,
She will.
it doesn't matter what country you're from. It really doesn't.
No, I thought maybe there was something up against Venezuela.
No, just the current president. If I was able to show you the video, it showed a nice piece on participating in American democracy. What they want you to get involved with your community. Okay, you get involved with your church, your local government, run for the school board, you know, be a part of your community. Bring your experiences to your neighborhood, okay, to your community. Gosh, that is so important. That's what we were based upon. We have the diversity of the United States. It's so amazing because of everybody that's come here and have brought things from their home. Bring your home cooking, start up a restaurant, man. Tell you what, nothing better than that. One of the last things I want to just mention to you is please be careful of scam artists out there. There's people out there that want to take your money, okay? We've had a gentleman that set up shop in the back of a barber shop helping people do their N400s and asking them to submit their application once they get it filled out and leave the pay to order blank on the money order that they gave them. Do you think those people got their citizenship papers filed? Not a chance. I had a lady that I spoke to about 8 years ago who came in with her green card, asked me to check the status of her case. She paid a guy $3,000